Welcome to Crossover the Pond, brought to you by 21 Media Productions and Sports Social. He's Drew Lasker, I'm Josh Sexton, and this is another episode as we continue our NBA journey, a short hezzy tween and stutter step away here in the UK. Drew, you're leaving that show up there. It's NBA All-Star Weekend, baby. We've gone through NBA All-Star Weekend. We've had dunk contests, three-point contests, Rising Stars games, All-Star games, and strangely enough, Drew, I don't hear very much complaining on the internet. It sounds like a lot of people actually enjoyed this one.
You mean NBA Twitter isn't complaining? That's very surprising because there's
Kevin Durant will be pleased.
It's always something to complain about. That won't be long lasting. Just wait till the games kick back off on Thursday after these guys get a well-deserved break before hitting the final stretch of the season. But it isn't much to complain about. When you think about the All-Star game in itself, what's the one thing that people have been asking for? Haven't been asking for, Game 7 NBA Finals. They've just been asking about effort. And I can attest, this is one of the first All-Star games I watched in a very long time. A lot because the timing. It was an early tip-off, which was really nice for us Europeans over here across the pond. But the effort was definitely there.
Absolutely, and it did all start with that Rising Stars game and the sort of Friday night slate, because it was an interesting sort of format change across the All-Star games, really, from the Rising Stars game into the All-Star game. I loved having the old guys, the old heads come in and coach the young rookies and sophomores playing in the All-Star game. Drew, like seeing VJ Edgecombe coming in the Vince Carter t-shirt. I'm not sure if you caught that, but then obviously being on Vince's team as well. Like it seemed like if you looked at Vince and Melo and T-Mac and the guys, they really enjoyed that one, being able to come back and do some not so serious coaching.
Yeah, well, usually, historically, the Rising Star game is pretty competitive just because, why not? You got young guys in the league trying to make a name for themselves. So if you're going to come here and just go through the motions, then it's a shame on you. But, I'm interested to get your thoughts because you did the heavy lifting in the beginning of the weekend. I obviously closed it out, so I didn't get to watch the Rising Star game in its entirety. But what were your overall thoughts about the setup and the competitiveness in the game itself?
Yeah, I think like the good thing is, and we've said this a lot on the show this year, really, that like it does feel like the next era of the NBA is here. Like, and you saw that in the All-Star game. We'll come on to talk about that a little bit more in terms of the difference between Team Stars and Team Stripes as the two US teams. But like, it feels like the future of the NBA is in very good hands. And I think if you looked around watching this Rising Stars game, like you got that same feeling. Like the energy was there, as you said, and like the energy is kind of always there because it's your chance to showcase if you're a young guy. But for a lot of these like young guys in this game, like they're already here. Like Stephon Castle playing in the game is already here. He's on a contending team. He's a very good player, one of the top options on a contending team. Dylan Harper, even, I know I'm just sort of reeling off Spurs guys there, but VJ Edgecombe is another one. Like we've said that we think the Sixers can be contenders this year. VJ Edgecombe is right there within that. There's Donovan Clingan, who's playing for a team that could easily make a run if they can get past the play-in. So there's all these different guys who've been able to be big contributors to their teams this year. Con Kneppel is someone we've given our flowers to over and over again. So for a lot of these guys, like they don't necessarily have to show up. If the All-Stars aren't going to show up, then like it's not necessarily on the Rising Stars to like have to show up. But the thing I just thought from like looking at this was the future is in good hands. It's nice to have that little like nod to the past. And like I don't know about you, Drew, I'm a huge T-Mac and Vince fan. Obviously Cousins both played for sort of similar teams down the years, kind of like similar-ish style players, really, like both athletic, both really adept at getting to the rim, flashy highlights packages, really, for both of them. Vince has obviously got his own All-Star Weekend history in terms of his major dunk contest performance, so it was nice to see those guys sort of like almost like doffing their caps, really, to the younger era.
Yeah, no, I thought those guys did a good job of carrying it all weekend. And, if you're in the NBA, you look up to those guys like Carmelo, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. So if you're in their presence, like you're going to want to, like I said earlier, make a name for yourself. But you're going to want to show out for the legends. And I thought also the coverage makes a difference as well. It switched over to NBC and Peacock this year, where historically it's been on TNT. And there were a lot of complaints last year with TNT where it being more about Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Shaq, and the end of that era, as opposed to the stars in the game itself. So, everything that I'm seeing online is NBC was able to cut out a lot of the fluff and just focus strictly on basketball, is because although we know the NBA is entertainment, but at the end of the day, we come to watch the best players in the world compete on a night-to-night basis. So shout out to those guys for along with Amazon and ESPN stepping its game up. Its hand being forced because it's getting back to the analysts, it's getting back to the game, and it's getting away from all that other fluff.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll move on to talk about NBA All-Star Saturday, because generally for me, Drew, I have to be honest, especially in the last few years when the All-Star game has kind of not been there in terms of energy, and the format's kind of been maybe even a little bit tired, you could argue, when you see the new format moving in this year. All-Star Saturday night has been like the hallmark event for me. Like, I think back to watching that Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine dunk contest live, and think back to, 3-point contests in the past. I remember like one year really rooting for JJ Redick when he was on the Clippers. And for basically every single three he tossed up, his foot was on the line. So like they were all going down, but they were all just long twos. So they all got cancelled out. And they've had the Steph and Sabrina thing in the last few years too. But we'll start off with the 3-point contest, because me and you said on the last episode that there's a kind of surprise of Damian Lillard being in the dunk contest. Well, Damian Lillard said, hold my crutches, hold your shorts. He didn't even wear shorts for this, Drew. He turned up in sweats and won the damn thing, which you can't say fairer than that to Damian Lillard, turning up on a torn Achilles and winning the 3-point contest.
Yeah, what did I say last episode? I said that I was really intrigued in, for you to come off an Achilles injury, and this is the first time that the world is seeing you, in action. It takes a lot of confidence and self-belief to expose yourself in that type of setting and arena in front of all of your peers. And man, he delivered. He stepped up, and his shot, I mean, when you really look at his mechanics, he fits, and you can see why he's been so successful at the 3-point contest, because you see the greats, Reggie Miller, all those guys, they kind of talk about how big time jumpers or leapers or jump shooters really struggle in a 3-point contest because you kind of lose your legs. Fatigue begins to set in. But Dame Lillard, he barely leaves the ground, so he's able to show that endurance throughout the competition. And him taking down Devin Booker, Devin Booker, by the way, has one of the purest, prettiest, nicest jumpers in the NBA. And for him to take down him in the All-Star game, it was just incredible, man. And it's a testament to his hard work that he's been putting in. And I just took that as a little preview of what's to come, and that don't write him off, and he will be back. So this is only the foreshadowing.
Absolutely, yeah. And you said in the last episode, like, he's never going to be there to make up the numbers, Dame Lillard. He is a serious competitor, and maybe it's not one that we've seen necessarily in the All-Star game down the years, but as we say, we think that's more of like a format issue than a personnel issue, really, although a lot of the personnel did turn up this year. I want to give a personal shout out to Concanepple as well, because you mentioned about Dame sort of ousting Devin Booker in the final round. Concanepple did make it to the final round. He was my prediction to win the thing on my bold predictions last week, but there's still time for Con shouldn't be disheartened by that final round performance. He lost out to two of the all-time greats there in Damian Lillard and Devin Booker, and as you say, one of the all-time great strokes, really, and in Damian Lillard, who ends up coming away with the thing. So salute to the 3-point contest for bringing a good narrative into the weekend, really, and then finishing on a good narrative. I want to give a sort of slight touch to the dunk contest, Drew, because it feels to me like it's been a little bit of a lost contest, really, the last few years. And I think part of the problem, and I know Mo Moons referenced this on his podcast recently, is that you basically got like professional dunkers that we see across social media all the time now. I think about Joel Henry that we've got over here in the UK, the Royal Guard, who like pulls out some of the flashiest dunks that we get to see all of the time. And I think back to that Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon contest, and what I think was really stand out about that contest is the athleticism of Zach LaVine, but the kind of like I don't know what you'd really call it, but like creativeness almost of Aaron Gordon in that contest, like using the mascot on the Segway going around with the ball and stuff. Like he really pulled out all the stops in terms of the props. Zach LaVine came with athleticism, but guys are like as athletic, if not a little bit less athletic than Zach LaVine was then, now. And this is what you kind of saw in this dunk contest, really. Like Kashard Johnson, who wins it, his flashiness or his creativeness kind of came in like the dances that he kept doing after it all. But really, like, the dunks are so impressive. And like, I'm cross at my own brain because I'm looking at them going like, yeah, it kind of is what it is. But like, the dunks are absolutely ridiculous when you break them down. And it's no surprise now that, you know, dunks that maybe back in the day would have got like 50s and stuff kind of just get like 46s, 47s as ratings now.
Yeah. Firstly, you know, there's a lot of talk about the dunk contest and a lot of criticism about should it stay, should it go. Firstly, I want to give those four guys that participated their flowers because it takes a lot of courage in today's society to step up and expose yourself in a dunk contest, which we know. I love the word that you use. That's why people aren't, you know, leaving their seats anymore because the creativity. What else can you do? I mean, you think about Mac McClung over the last couple of years. His dunks have been creative. If you talk about that dunk contest you referenced to, that was 10 years ago with Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon. It wasn't the vertical. It wasn't the skyscraping dunks. It was the creativity that we saw in each dunk. You know, the same thing when I think about 2000, which for me is a reference point because I remember exactly where I was when I watched that Vince Carter dunk contest, and those were dunks that were jaw-dropping because it was stuff we had never seen before. So that's what's required of a dunk contest, and I think why the dunk contest has lost its luster is because of social media, because everything – you have access to everything. And, you know, you see guys out there that you just mentioned, those professional dunkers, they come across your timeline regularly. So there's nothing else that you could possibly do. So I want to give those guys credit. I do think it's time to move on from it because, again, the difference now between the three-point contest and the dunk contest, although when you think about it, when you break down a three-point contest, it's just the ball going into the hoop, right? Nothing fancy, nothing flashy, but it's mesmerizing because a lot of the times we have the best three-point shooters in the contest. It's about the personnel, right? The three-point contest would lose its luster if we had G Leaguers, if we had guys you had never heard of. But typically, they're guys that you heard of. They're stars. There are guys who are ranking at the top of the leaderboard in the league in three-point shooting percentage, and that's why it draws our attention. Where the dunk contest, it doesn't have the household names, right? If we were to get back to having the superstars, I think we would be able to carry that competition on. And I think people would be enamored by just your favorite player dunking as opposed to saying, oh, we've seen that before. Like, you can't go anywhere with it. Like, I just think it would be cool to see Ja Morant dunk, even if it's ordinary dunks, right? So that's the difference between both of the contests. It's about the participants as opposed to the actual contest. And I saw this morning, I saw one with Kareem. It just floated across my Twitter, and it was a very basic dunk contest and dunks then. And then we have to also give context then as well. That was in the 70s or 80s, whenever that was. So, again, it's about the personnel. It's not about the competition itself. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if the NBA is unable to draw those superstars that they move along from it.
Yeah, you referenced there the difference between the format and the personnel, so which that takes us nicely on to All-Star Sunday. Really intrigued, Drew, by the formats. As I say, they were similar to the Rising Stars game, but I think the Rising Stars game is always one of the things you can kind of like shape and mold a little bit more than the All-Star game. Like Adam Silver, I think, has been bold in shaping and remolding this All-Star game, and like it's hard because I think from that first game there definitely was like a little bit of it's like same old All-Star game, and I kind of want to like blame Team World for that, to be honest. I feel like I can speak on this as a European. Like Team World just didn't really show up. Like, besides Wemby, none of the other guys, like Nikola Jokic, is a hilarious basketball player to watch at the best of times anyway. And I say hilarious sometimes in a positive way, because sometimes Nikola Jokic does things on the court that like are so good you can't help but just laugh at. But equally, when he doesn't try and when he's off it, and Luka Doncic obviously coming off an injury, Jokic had his injury, in the not too distant past. So maybe the efforts of those two guys kind of came down to that as much as anything else. But like in that first game, I was kind of watching it, and as I say, besides Wemby and Anthony Edwards, who were dueling banjos basically during that game, like Team World just really disappointed me, to be honest. I kind of thought that like within this format, part of why Adam Silver had done it is because there has been this little bit of a takeover with Team World recently. Maybe you can try and bring some of those like World versus US rivalries to the fore. And for me, World just didn't really show up.
Yeah, I don't want to be too hard on Luka and Jokic because he's dealing with a hamstring right now, which we know you got to be very careful with that. And then Jokic has had his knee issues this season. So I wasn't expecting much from them anyway, but I love what Kevin Durant said recently in a post-game presser that he put the onus on those two because historically, I vividly remember Lucas taking half-court shots and just kind of going through the motions. And we know Jokic has never taken the All-Star game seriously. So I love the fact that he put the onus on them as well because all of the focus seems to be on the U.S. superstars. And it's everybody. So I love that he did that. But, I watched this game with very little education on who was on what team. I wasn't very clear about that. I wasn't very clear about the rules. I just went into the game with an open mind. So I just wanted to see good hoops. I wasn't really concerned about the competition. I learned the competition as the game went on. The commentating crew, Jamal Crawford, Ian Eagle, and those guys did a great job of explaining it. But right away, and I got to go get me a Wemby's jersey because Wemby had talked about how he was going to be competitive. And we've seen this before, right? Like Jamal Murray talked about it as well. Every time I hit the court, I'm going to be competitive. And he was awful in the first game. But, it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to be about it. And Wemby from the jump set the tone. He came out. He was very, very aggressive offensively and defensively. I mean, I jumped out my seat when he threw, I think it was Cade Cunningham's shot in the third row. He had a couple of blocks, a couple of heavy contests. And Anthony Edwards was right because after his first game interview, he mentioned Wemby. He said Wemby set the tone. He did because at the end of the day, like guys are – the All-Star game, these formats, is a filling out process. Like no one wants to get hurt. You're kind of trying to check out the vibe. But at the end of the day, your competitive instincts kick in. And that's what happened. Like Wemby forced Team USA stars competitiveness instincts to kick in because it was like, oh, wait a minute. He's dominating me on the offensive end. Wait, he just blocked my shot? Wait, he just locked me up? And then that's what got it going. Then Ant started going, and then that's what got the game juicy. And the way it unfolded with – Team World winning and it going into overtime. And that last play was indicative of Wemby's mindset because all you had to do if your Team World was not give up a three because the score was 2-3. You go to 5 in overtime. So they use a ball screen. They kind of got switched up there. They caused them to scramble. And, of course, who got lost in the sauce on a lost assignment was Cat. We know about his defensive issues. Ended up giving a 3-up, a game winner to Scotty Barnes, which it seemed like he was unsure that was a game winner or not. And Wemby was visibly upset, stormed off, like throwing his hand up. He even talked about it afterwards that we didn't display a high level of IQ, calling guys out. And so Team Stripes, which was the old school guys, LeBron, Steph, all those guys, they're in the back warming up on the court, but they have a TV and they can watch, and they see this unfolding, and that's what kind of set the table for all of these games being incredible with, Stripes and Stars going against each other and, that game coming down to a game winner, and it was just incredible. All 3 games were great. Obviously, the 4th game wasn't competitive. The old guys' legs caught up to them. But I was very satisfied. I was very full. I jumped out my seat several times, and that's all I wanted was just to see the best players go after each other and prove that uh, you belong on this stage. Which there's a couple of guys that I was really questioning if they belonged on that stage, just because they looked out of place. But yeah, I'm happy, I'm full, and I'm content.
I love the makeup of the rosters as well, Drew. I kind of want to give a shout out to that really because Devin Booker is maybe the only one on Stars who could have easily been on Stripes given his age. He's sort of crossed over with a couple of ages of the guys on the Stripes roster, but like I kind of like that Devin Booker is the leader of a group of young guys on his roster this season and was like the leader of a group of young guys again in the All-Star game, and the young guys showed out. Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham, like the energy that they put into this as Detroit Pistons, they showed out for Detroit. Like that was Detroit style energy throughout all of these games in the All-Star game. Like it's no surprise to me that those two being on the same team meant that the energy levels just lifted. I think Anthony Edwards is one of those guys that's going to compete on any given night, and then there's other young guys in there who clearly do want to show out, and when you put them up against some of the older dudes, like I think, like to be honest, what brought this into stark focus for me, and like Stripes did have one game, as you say, they kind of faded in that final game, really. They did have one good game against the Stars, I should say. They had a great game against World, where Kawhi obviously gets his 31 points in that too as they knock off World, but other than like playing against World and being motivated by that, like Stripes didn't seem like they brought that level of motivation, and maybe that's been like the problem in All-Star games in the past. Really, is that like it's actually a problem with some of the old heads. Like they've got used to All-Star games kind of not mattering, but you bring a bit of like young hungry blood into it, put them all on a team together, by the way, and put them up against the old guys, and suddenly you're going to see them really showing out.
Yeah, I think, a lot of criticism has gone on to LeBron, and it's not just LeBron, but in games like that, everyone follows the vibe of the best player. And, a lot of these guys, when you look at even Steph, I mean, the shots they've been jacking up the last couple of years, the awful half court shots, guys have taken it easy, not wanting to get injured, and is so much focus on your brand and all of this other stuff and not getting embarrassed and ending up on social media. I just think it was that little pocket. It's that entire era. So I blame it on all those guys, KD, Steph, LeBron. Now you got this young guy, and the transition is perfect. You mentioned it earlier about the game on Friday and how we are transitioning to a new era, and you see it and you saw it on Sunday as well in the All-Star game and I'm glad it was poetic justice that the Stars won, because that is the new era. Cade Cunningham, he will be the point guard for the USA team in 28. He looked fantastic. Devin Booker will be there as well. Jalen Duren, all these young guys, Tyrese Maxey. It just felt like it was just we were getting back to the competitiveness of them wanting to take the mantle off the old guys and not waiting on their turn, them taking their moment, with Anthony Edwards leading the pack of that team, and then the vigor that they brought, the energy, the excitement. And I see, as long as guys like Victor and Wembanyama and all those guys involved, I feel like this is the new presidents moving forward as we begin to wash away a lot of the old heads.
Yeah, absolutely. They did manage to get one game against the Stars in the build up to the final, but all that matters is what you do in the final. And the Stripes did not turn up, but I did mention, Drew, there was one of the Stripes who had himself a night, and that was Kawhi Leonard when he came up against Team World. 31 points in his 12 minutes there. Just unbelievable. And like I kind of want to salute Kawhi anyway, really, because like being a Clippers fan, I've been watching loads of those games over the past few weeks and months, where for me Kawhi has been one of, if not the best players in the NBA with the level of play that he's displaying. Like I keep hearing guys that are currently in the league talk about like what makes Kawhi so special, and they say like basically every element of his game is underrated, like how efficient he is. It's so like that brings into play like his shot IQ, but his ability to do it at his own speed speed and make sure that he gets the shot that he wants to get. The handle, like people say, the handle, the way he like pounds the ball, as in literally how hard the ball hits the court because of, you know, the big hands and the muscular frame of Kawhi. Like, it makes it so hard to steal the ball from him because the ball is hitting the ground literally so fast and going back up to his hand, and then he's able to get to his spots because he's bouncy. He's so good from that elbow range, but he's been knocking down the three as well. He was 86%, 6 of 7 from three in this 12 minutes against Team World. Just an absolutely incredible performance from Kawhi Leonard. Like, if Stripes would have won the whole thing, he probably could have won All-Star MVP based on that alone. But of course, Stars won, and I think in that sense you had to give it to Anthony Edwards for the energy level that he had over the course of the whole thing. Because there was one game for Stripes, I think, where Kawhi had 0 points, but in this one game specifically, he absolutely showed out with 31 points.
I don't know if you watched this live, but a couple of my words watching this was like, damn, wow, man. I don't think I've ever seen Kawhi Leonard look this great. And what really, my takeaway from this was, this is a guy with pride. If you look at the last couple of years, let's kind of rewind back since the Toronto championship. There has been nothing but negative press and criticism around Kawhi. When you think about the Aspire thing, when you think about what Stephen A. Smith always says on his show about him being the worst superstar ever because he doesn't promote the league. When you look at the 65 rule, which a lot of that has to do with him, you know, that sitting out stuff. This was a guy that was saying, hey, let me remind you, because he's starting to see the league move on without him and move into this next generation. And, you know, he has to assume that a lot of people don't watch Clipper games. You know, I've been able to watch a couple, but maybe a fan will say, you're having a great year, but you're doing it on a bad team. I know the Clippers have been playing well as late. This was his opportunity to do it on a national stage, surrounded amongst all the best players in the world, and he really stood out among the best of the best to where they were force-feeding him. And you mentioned it there, which really stood out to me. It wasn't the shot making. His handle got tighter. I don't ever remember his handle being like that. It was like, it wasn't a wop-wop. It was a wop-wop-wop-wop-wop-wop-wop shot. I was like, when did he get all of this? So I love the fact, again, I mentioned that word earlier, the competitiveness instinct kicked in with Kawhi Leonard, just to remind people, hey, I ain't done yet. And by the way, I'm due for an extension this summer as well. So perfect timing by your guy Kawhi. Great performance.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the future does hold for him and the Clippers, because you kind of imagine that anything he does now just inflates his value, and the Clippers maybe look to get off that contract in the summer and, you know, make this kind of last trade of the old era to bring in this new era that we are seeing from the Clippers. But who knows? Like, this could be just Kawhi being the sole vet on a team of younger guys, and, you know, being the one that kind of leads them through. I think of like Chris Paul on the Suns, or even Chris Paul on the Thunder, really, in the last few years, in terms of that guy who's like still at, you know, all-star or star level even, and leads a team of young guys into their next era. And I think you're seeing that from Kawhi at the moment. Like, he was probably, you know, over the past few years, and you see it in Toronto as well, as you mentioned, he already was one of the great ISO scorers, but the Clippers kind of build a team around him where he doesn't necessarily have to be like the you know, from the first minute to the last ISO scorer for the Clippers, but kind of like now he does. And I think he's showing you, as you say, Drew, with the handle, but with the shot making and everything else as well, like a genuine 3-level scorer. And I think the title of 3-level scorer gets tossed around for guys that are like, you know, will shoot 33% from three or something, which is like okay at NBA level. Kawhi shoots 50, 40, 90 basically. Like, he is genuine 3-level scorer. So salute to Kawhi. Like, I love having him on my favorite team. I'll be sad if all of this is kind of like a value inflation tactic for the summer, because I'll be sad to see Kawhi go. But Equally, the other thing that you mentioned there, Drew, is the aspiration stuff hanging over him. But if we're speaking about the next generation of stars and ISO scorers and all these kind of things, we'd be remiss if we left off the All-Star MVP Anthony Edwards, Drew, because you predicted this. I have to tip my cap to you. I feel like in the bold predictions this season, Drew is up. We've not been taking scores. Maybe I'll go back at the end of the season and look at the scores. But I feel like I'm taking a beating from Drew at the moment, which maybe the pro in him is really coming through in terms of that competitiveness, as we keep referencing here. But Anthony Edwards takes home the MVP, brought energy throughout, talking shit throughout as well, which is exactly what you expect from Anthony Edwards. Like one of my favourite Anthony Edwards moments is from the Olympics documentary. I don't know if you watched this, Drew, or if you've seen the clip where Barack Obama's like conversing with Anthony Edwards, and you'd think maybe like, you know, it's a former president, maybe you'd like tone it down a bit, but Anthony Edwards, they're like, no, I'm the truth, like talking to Barack as if he's like talking shit to him as well. I love Anthony Edwards. I think he's so great for this league. I love the attitude that he brings. If the future in terms of like the face of the league US wise is Anthony Edwards, then I think the league is in very, very good hands.
Yeah, he just has the full package. He has the personality. He's very outgoing. He's funny, and he's confident. He has that mixture of confidence and arrogance, kind of like on an MJ level, but he can make you smile as well while saying it, so it doesn't sound as bad. And his tone is changing as well. You know, they've asked him about this several times in the past about being the face of the league, and he's always been defiant. I don't want that. Like, that's not me. But during All-Star Weekend, it was the first time that I seen him kind of leave the door open, and his comments were, and I'm paraphrasing, was something around the lines of, that's for you guys to decide. You know, I'm just going to go out there and do what I do and be myself and be a hooper, and if it comes with it, it comes with it. I've never heard him say that. So I love that, because we need a new face, because the guard is changing right before our eyes, and we need someone we can point at. And if it's not him, it's going to be Wemby. But again, it's ironic that those two were going toe-to-toe to kind of set the tone for the All-Star Weekend, two guys under the age of 25 years old. And Anthony Edwards, he has all the tools. And again, this was his coming out party as well, because, you know, he even mentioned it that, you know, he's not expecting a national audience to tune in to Minnesota Timberwolves game on a regular basis. So, you know, this is his chance to tap in with, you know, the casuals. Obviously, you know, he's in tune with the culture, but, you know, necessarily corporate America doesn't know who Anthony Edwards is. And this is his coming out party, and he's here to stay. Him and Wemby. I would love the NBA to create a rivalry amongst those two, and to put those guys face in front of the league moving forward, because we need it. You got to have it, and those two are fit for it.
Absolutely, and we mentioned about the new era arriving, and so it showed in the viewing figures as well. The NBA has been kind of slammed the last few years, and I think, to be honest, from what I've seen on the internet in terms of that discourse, like, it comes from American football fans who appear to be like obsessed with ratings. And like, you know, I've referenced a couple of times on a couple of my own things that I'm like getting into the NFL and you know, been enjoying it because it's a growing sport in the UK. But the NBA is more of a global game than American football is, and it's no surprise to me. Like, it's actually been a surprise that the ratings have been down the past few years, and I think that's been on the NBA to make sure they market it better and to make sure that it becomes the global game that it is in terms of having the eyes of the world on it. Well, the NBA All-Star Game this season averaged 8.8 million viewers across multiple networks, making that the largest NBA All-Star audience since 2011, and I think that is testament to Adam Silver, to be honest, Drew. And I've been critical of him on here. I've wondered if the Adam Silver era should come to an end now with everything that's been going on off the court in the past few years, and even the Kawhi aspiration stuff, I think, is going to be a big test of his sort of legacy as a commissioner here. But, you know, the NBA fans, as we sort of referenced with our tongue in our with the tongues in our cheeks at the start, like, they do complain about a lot of things on Twitter. They are very critical of everything that happens in the NBA, and they've moaned about the All-Star Game for years. They wanted it to be more competitive for years. Adam Silver put on a show this NBA All-Star Weekend. And can I just salute Intuit Dome as well, by the way, because Intuit Dome is a fantastic arena. I've said that since the start. I knew it was ready to host an All-Star Game. And people have talked about, like, you know, the attendance maybe not being there, people taking pictures like way too early of the crowd, by the way. Like,
that's annoying.
It's weird. Like I don't, one of the things I don't like about social media is how people try and like do mental gymnastics to make their own narrative about things. Like by the time that All-Star games were tipping off into the sort of later stage of them, by the time that dunk contests were well in the swing of things, that arena was damn near full. And if it wasn't, then it was to do with ticket prices. You're in Inglewood in Los Angeles, like you can't be charging through the nose if you're going to be getting locals in there. I'm afraid, like it's a very working class part of LA, even if that area around it is redeveloped now. So yeah, couple of points for you to unpack there, Drew. But salute to Adam Silver and salute to the city of Inglewood and to Intuit Dome in particular.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool that you and I have been there recently, so we had the perspective. It was nice to watch it and kind of have that feeling in the back of your head that, hey, I've been inside there. So you're able to consume the weekend a little bit differently when you have that perspective. So I'm glad I got that opportunity back in November. But yeah, they're ready for it. That's just a beautiful area that they've developed with SoFi being across the street and everything that they have in that area. And it was ready for it. And then, you know, all the aerial shots you saw, like how beautiful does California look when that sun is shining? It's just a beautiful place. So, you know, a lot of people complain about the tip-off times being too early or earlier. Like, it was great for me. Like, it obviously gave Europeans a chance to consume it, which is never usually the case. So I think that might be something moving forward that they could do. And I'm sure for the players, it allows them to get out of town afterwards and, you know, take advantage of their 2 days or 3 days that they have off. So that might be a thing for the future. It was moved up earlier because the Winter Olympics and NBC hosting both, and that was the reasoning. But I think it might be something to that. And, you know, these ratings things that I see, you know, people, they're showing these pictures of empty seats. They're saying nobody watches the NBA. But all the ratings I've seen on NBA communications all year, all the numbers are up. You know, they're criticizing Silver on, you know, these different platforms that the NBA is on. I don't know where the game is. You can't ever find it. Well, somebody's finding it. And I love that it's versatile. Like it's on a lot of different platforms, and I think it allows the NBA to open its doors to many different audiences. It gives people an opportunity to stumble across it, and if you want it, you'll find it. And people are going to continue to learn the cadence of what day it's being shown, and it's just like anything, you'll learn it. And so I just think it's just going to be better and better moving forward.
Absolutely, and if there are new eyes coming onto the NBA, then they've got plenty to still be excited about this season, really, Drew. I'm intrigued to sort of just get a little bit into before we finish here, just what we're expecting from the next few weeks and months of the NBA now. As you say, the players getting a well-deserved rest at the moment. Maybe it'll be enough time for some stars to come back from their injuries. It sounds like the rumblings around the league are that Jason Tatum is absolutely on his way back for the Boston Celtics, looking at maybe that first week in March for his return. Whether it's the Philadelphia 76ers game, whether it's Dallas Mavericks game that comes for the Boston Celtics, I'm personally very excited to see the return of Jason Tatum and the continuing ascent of this Boston Celtics team, because I like what they're doing there. I like Joe Mazzulla, I like Brad Stevens as a GM, but you see it up and down the league, really, Drew. Just before we went into All-Star break, the Detroit Pistons went into it as the team with the best record in the NBA, which, considering where the Thunder were, we were questioning if they're one of the greatest teams of all time before the season started, and whether they could beat the Golden State Warriors for their record. For the Detroit Pistons to go into All-Star break and then have two All-Stars in the game competing at such a high level as well. I've said it before, I'll say it again, like, excited for guys like Jason Tatum to come back, obviously, because they are stars that are in their peak. There definitely are some faded stars like who are causing some controversy off the court. If we want to talk a little bit about Kevin Durant's burner, but we won't go too much into that because there may be some potential legalities around that. But funny narratives off the court as always, Drew. But if you focus on the basketball on the court, there is so much to look forward to in this league.
Yeah, the NBA is built on narratives, it's built on storylines, but this is the part of the season we get to the nitty-gritty. We get to the meat and potatoes because, you know, as much as the narrative is thrown around about the regular season doesn't matter, this part of the season, it matters now. This is the final stretch. If you look at Detroit, they got 29 games remaining. This is when the jockeying begins. This is when you set yourself off for playoff seeding, because you want that top four, because you want home court advantage. You also want top six, so you guarantee yourself a playoff spot, because if you finish 7th to 8, you got to fight for your lives, so you don't want to finish down there. You also got to start building chemistry and rotations with your team. So there's no more tinkering. It's time to start building for the long haul for those contending teams. And you're going to get the best of the best now. Guys get this week off, fully rested. No one returned. The NBA returns on Thursday, which ultimately gives them a full week off for most of the league, those that didn't participate in All-Star Weekend. We got healthy bodies coming back. It is going to be an incredible finish to the season. And now, if you haven't paid attention now, this is when you need to lock in to make sure you're educated and you're in the know for when it comes playoff time. And, you're able to find your team, who you're going to root for to the end, because this thing goes all the way to June. So I'm looking forward to getting now to the basketball aspect of it all. And this is the best part about it, because you're going to see the guys bring their best A game now.
This really is the best part. You know what else is the best part? Is that me and Drew are going to be here every single week to cover every narrative around the NBA, whether it's on the court, off the court. We're definitely going to do more of the on the court stuff. Don't worry. We're gonna try and leave some of that off the court stuff in the first half of the season now with all the trades and stuff. This is the real basketball action that we're going to get into here. So all that is left for me to say for this week is for Drew to lead us out.
Yeah, we had our vacations, which I don't know for Josh, but for me, it was just a normal week being at home. But I've had my mental break from the NBA. It's time to lock back in. I'm excited to watch even more games than I have been. I'm going to take it up a level in regards to my consumption. And we're going to bring you all the information and educate you guys here across the pond. The ins and outs of the NBA as we prepare for the playoff season. Until then, subscribe, keep supporting like you've been. We're going to keep this train moving, and we will catch you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in, guys.